This is the I-10 Freeway Corridor Study. The purpose of this study is to improve safety, enhance traffic operations. We want to enhance access to and from downtown, the airport, and other areas nearby. We want to protect the surrounding communities. That's a very important objective for us. We want to accommodate regional travel needs and enhance high occupancy vehicle access and mobility at the same time. This has been going on for a while. About a year ago, we started a public survey. I'll be talking about the results of that in a little bit, where we asked you questions about your perceptions and your recommendations going forward. After that, we tested some different alternatives and came up with an initial set of recommendations moving forward. We're now meeting again with you to share those recommendations in their draft form and give you an opportunity to comment, ask questions, and help us to finalize a set of recommendations. That will happen this winter. And after that, after it's approved through our governing body, and for the Maricopa Association of Governments, our ruling, it's not a board of directors, it's actually the regional council, which is every mayor of every city and town in Maricopa County, parts of Pinal County, including Native Nations, and Maricopa County itself, and Pinal County. So those are the people who are going to make the decision moving forward on this project. So early on, I'm going back now more than a year ago, we started to look at this project to find out what we thought were the problems. And almost immediately we discovered this corridor has a lot of crashes. What you're looking, the map that you're looking at here is a heat map. Where it's red, that's where the most crashes occur. And then it transitions to yellow and down to blue. And you can see that the tunnel is a location with lots of crashes around 7th Street, up on 51, coming down towards the 10. Those are the places for the most crashes. But the interesting thing is, between 2016 and 2021, that's a 6-year period, there was an average of almost 5.5 crashes every day in this corridor. That's a lot of crashes. Now we're going to look at those crashes that resulted in serious injury or death. And here we can see that there were more than 1.2 crashes every month on average during those entire 6 years, where there were crashes resulting in severe injury or death. You can see here that the two interchanges are the hottest spots there. 7th Street also is a hot spot. And if you look closely, you might be able to see some little black dots. Each one of those dots is a crash that resulted in a death. Now, the other thing we looked at is travel speed. And the way that we looked at this, we wanted to actually put some numbers together, quantify this. So we developed a sophisticated micro-simulation model so that we could look at this as the peak hour starts and ends and see how things are going. And so what I'm going to do now is take you on a little bit of a trip, one that you may have made many times. And that is, we're going to go on I-10. We're going to start by the mini stack. You're just getting off of 51 or 202 and heading down towards Sky Harbor Boulevard. And as you start this trip, it's early in the hour. Things are doing really well. We're averaging 59 miles an hour. Not bad. But as we start moving down, what happens is it gets slower and slower and slower. And by the time you get to Sky Harbor Boulevard, you're at 8 miles an hour on average. Now, what's really happening here is that there is some kind of an event down by Sky Harbor Boulevard. Cars are stopped. If you're traveling this at the beginning, right after that happened, you're still going 59 miles an hour. You can go all the way down to past Jefferson Street before you have to slam on your brakes. But as the hour progresses, that queue gets longer and longer. It moves up and up on the road. And by the end of the hour, you're hitting your brakes before you get to Washington Street. So that's one of the situations that we have to deal with. A second one is a different location. Now we're going eastbound on the 10 towards the 51 and the 202. And what you're looking at here is the result of a study that was done by MAG a few years ago. This is at I-10 and the exit ramp to 16th Street. Now, every dot in this diagram is a car or a truck. The red ones are moving very slowly. The yellow dots are moving much more quickly. So what's happening here is cars are queuing back from the mini stack. They want to go to the 51 and the 202, but you have to wait in line. The right-hand 2 lanes are backed up all the way past 16th Street off-ramp. But the lanes on the left, people are still going 59 miles an hour. And so you have a problem now where you can be in one lane where it's very slow, and the next lane over, a car could be going 30 miles an hour faster than you are. So this is a problem for weaving, creates incentives for queue jumping, and creates a lot of stops and starts. Now, the thing that is consistent about these 2 trips that we just took is that they both involve vehicles moving at vastly different speeds, but in close proximity to each other. And that's something that when that occurs, that tends to increase the potential for crashes. So as we looked at this, we wanted to find where we have that differential in speed. If we can solve that problem, we can reduce the number of crashes. Now, to take that one step further, this is a diagram that we got from our model where we looked at the places that had the highest speed differential, the highest difference in speed. And you can see the dark blue lines are the places where you have that differential. Now, when we look at where the crashes occur, we see that there's a very high correlation. So this helped us to come to the conclusion that by addressing these areas where we have the speed differential, we can reduce the number of crashes. Those were our basic conclusions. Safety is our highest priority. We want to increase capacity and reduce congestion, but our primary objective is safety. Now, this is when last year when we started the survey. And for those of you who participated, thank you very much. We got almost 2,000 responses. We also had an interactive map on our website. You can actually go there and put comments on even now. And this is what we learned from you. We asked, how bad is congestion? So 80% said out of 5 is the worst, it's a 4 or a 5. Probably averages something like 4.6. And what are those impacts that this congestion causes to you? The highest one was stops and starts, followed by erratic driver behavior. Those are safety measures. Those are related to safety. Now, long travel times was a very close third, but it came after safety. We then asked the question, do you try to avoid this corridor when you travel? And the 56% said yes. Why? And again, it was the same. Stops and starts, erratic driver behavior at the top, followed very closely by long travel times, slow speeds. Then we asked the question, what's the most important objective of improving this area? Again, safety came up on top. So you told us safety is the highest priority. That was followed by travel time and ease of travel. The travel time, of course, is speeds, ease of travel. That's a safety measure, so that's sort of half and half. But other objectives were also important. Surrounding communities, access to jobs, and other things. And when we asked what types of improvements do you think need to be made, 80% said at the interchanges and the main line. So that told us we needed to look at design solutions in order to be effective. Now, the last question we asked was, do you support this? Overwhelming support, 97% said yes. And so we felt that we're all in sync here. We know the importance of this. We think safety is the most important thing. So the messages you gave us were that. We need to improve safety as the highest priority. We still need to work on capacity where we can. We need to protect the existing communities and provide access at the same time. So then the next question was, how can we find these places that create that differential in speed? What you're looking at here is output of our model, our microsimulation model, and this is for the year 2050 if we don't make any improvements. So on the left side, you can see this again is speeds where very slow speeds, less than 20 miles an hour, are in black, and the light colors are faster speeds than that. So at the very beginning of the hour, things look really good. People are moving well. There aren't any problems. But by the end of the hour, the entire corridors turn black. So how do you figure out where to make the improvement? The way that we did that is we would run the simulation starting before the peak hour, and every 5 minutes we'd stop and take a snapshot. And if you look on the figure to the left, you can see there are some little black lines that are just starting to form. So every 5 minutes, we would look and see where those lines were forming and getting larger. And when we did that, we found that there were 9 locations that needed to be addressed in order to reduce the speed differential. I'm not going to go through the details of this, but we do have a board somewhere that you can look at to see where those locations are. You can tell us whether we did a good job of identifying them or not. The next question is, okay, how are we going to remove those bottlenecks? What can we do? And we came up with 2 basic strategies. One is called braided ramps. I'm going to define these in just a moment. And the other one is a collector distributor road. So what is a braided ramp? A braided ramp is, let's start with a condition where you need to do something. There's a short weave section. Here you're seeing cars that are moving from the left to the right, and you see that there's an on-ramp coming on, and then there's an off-ramp on the other side. Now what happens is, as you're coming from the left, cars join, so you have more traffic in the middle, but they have to change lanes. They have to weave back and forth, and then you get to the off-ramp where some of that traffic leaves. So the heaviest traffic is in the middle, and where you have the weave is in the middle. And if too many cars are trying to weave, or if those ramps are too close together, that creates a bottleneck. The solution to that is you take these 2 ramps and you move them the other way. You crisscross them like this. Now, when you do that, the problem is the 2 ramps run into each other. And so we have to build a bridge. And that's why we call it a braided ramp. So that's one of the solutions, and you'll see in a minute, we do that a lot in this corridor. Oh, and here's an example of where we have braided ramps today. This is right at the mini-stack interchange at the 24th Street on-ramp and off-ramp. You can see that we have ramps going to the other freeways that are braided across here. So now the collector distributor road is very similar. It starts with the exact same problem, and you have these 2 ramps, and now we're going to move them like this, but we're going to move them a little bit further away, and instead of building a bridge, we're going to connect them with a parallel road, sort of a frontage road. And so what happens in this case is, instead of having the most traffic in the middle where you're weaving, you move the weaving traffic off to another facility, so there's no weaving on the main line, and the traffic is lower on the main line. So these are the 2 primary strategies that we've used in developing our recommendations. Oh, and here's an example of collector distributor roads that are being placed on I-10 at the Broadway curve now. What I'm going to do now is go through the recommendations that we're making as draft recommendations, and you'll see them on the maps we have on the tables in the back. And I'm going to start with the westbound I-10 between the 16th Street on-ramp and the 7th Street off-ramp. This is an area that has a whole lot of weaving, and certainly traffic backs up here a great deal. So the solution is to build a long braided ramp. So we move the off-ramp onto 7th Street all the way to the east to the mini-stack, and inside of the mini-stack interchange where those begin. And then it will go actually the 16th Street on-ramp, bridges over top of it. And we also have to move the 51 ramp that goes to westbound I-10, also has to be raised up and go over. Now, you'll find something interesting. That purple line that comes off of SR 51, if you follow that along I-10, there's no exit ramp there anymore. So it appears that that connection is lost. We know that that's a problem. We think we have a good way of solving it. The problem is that we have to go through a higher level of engineering to ensure that we can actually make that happen. And so that is going to have to wait until the next stage of design for us to be able to put that connection in. But we certainly intend to do it. We just can't promise it yet until we get to that higher level of design. Moving in the other direction, we have the same problem between the 7th Street on-ramp going eastbound and the 16th Street off-ramp. And the solution is very similar, only this time we take that off-ramp at 7th Street and take it all the way over, and it takes the traffic to the 51 and the 202. So all of that traffic is removed from the main line and put on this parallel ramp. The next location is coming south on 51, where you have the Thomas Street on-ramp and the McDowell Road off-ramp. And we do the same thing. Again, another long braided ramp to make that happen. Now we go further south. This is a area where the ramps are very close together, Jefferson Street on-ramp and the Sky Harbor Boulevard off-ramp. And again, similar solution here. In this case, in addition to providing the ramp to Sky Harbor Boulevard and keeping the Jefferson Street on-ramp to I-10 in its place, we also can connect from the Jefferson Street on-ramp directly to the new, directly to Sky Harbor Boulevard, so that that movement is not lost. Now going in the other direction, going from Sky Harbor Boulevard northbound, we have again between Jefferson and Sky Harbor Boulevard, we have a weave, we have other problems further north. This is where we put in a collector distributor road. The difference here, if you're coming up on I-10 and you go past Sky Harbor Boulevard and you want to go to the 51 or the 202, you get off here. And then you can carry that orange line all the way up to the 51 or the 202. If you're on Sky Harbor Boulevard and you want to get on I-10, you don't go directly onto I-10. You go on that collector distributor road until you get past Washington Street, and then you curve and go over onto the main line. So all those movements are there. They're just made in a way that you don't have all that weaving to deal with. A little bit further south, Buckeye Road on-ramp and the ramp to I-17. Again, these are very close, and we do the same thing here. Here again, we offer you can get from the Buckeye on-ramp, you have a ramp that connects you directly to I-17. So no movements are lost in this case. Going in the other direction, we have a similar issue. And in this case, we actually create a ramp that goes directly to Buckeye Road. So the only people getting onto I-10 are people who want to get on and stay on I-10. Then the last improvement that we're recommending is on the HOV system. And this is between the mini stack where you have HOV lanes coming from the 202 and coming from the 10 that merge together. Today, there's one lane in each of those ramps. They merge into a single lane, and then that single lane goes over, and when you get to 3rd Street, there's a direct access ramp that gets you to 3rd Street from the HOV lane. What we're doing here is we're adding a second lane in that section, so it will be easier for people to weave and find where they're going, and traffic will move more freely. So what are the results of these? So I'm going to show you now our 3 statistics, and I'm going to compare what things are like today to what things would be like in the year 2050 after we made these improvements. So we're not comparing to before and after for the year 2050. We're looking at 2050, comparing it to today. Today, in this case, actually is the year 2018. That's where we had the most data to calibrate our model. But that was pre-COVID and very similar to what things are like today. So existing a total of 35,000 vehicles use this corridor in an hour, in the AM peak hour. The average speed is 28.8 miles an hour, and there's an average delay per vehicle traveling is 3.4 minutes. Now, if you're traveling all the way from Sky Harbor Boulevard to 7th Street, It's a lot longer than 3.4 minutes of delay. But when you have shorter trips in there, this is the average for all those vehicles as they're going through. With the improvements that we're suggesting, we would get an increase of 5,000 more people who would be able to use the corridor. And we would increase speed by almost 10 miles an hour as an average speed going through. And we would reduce the amount of delay per vehicle by 44%, from 3.4 minutes to 1.9 minutes. Okay, now and let me show you what that looks like now. These are the speed graphs that we looked at before. So the one on the left is the existing AM peak hour average speed, and it's got a lot of black in there. In 2050, that disappears almost entirely in the AM peak hour. Now, if you think about the whole day, the AM peak hour we're looking at is between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. Anything earlier than that is less. After 9 o'clock, traffic goes down. So it's less traffic than what we see here. Around 2 o'clock, we have the PM peak hour. I'll talk about the peak hour in the PM in just a minute. But that ends around 6 o'clock. And then from 6 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the morning the next day, traffic is lighter. So what you're looking at on the right is going to be what you experience for 20 hours out of the day. But the PM peak hour is going to look a bit different. We still get the same kind of improvements, but they're not as large. We get an even larger improvement for the number of vehicles that are able to go through. And we do increase average speed, but not by very much. And we do reduce the delay, but again, not by a whole lot. So when you think about it, a lot more traffic going through there, but it's going to be better than today, just not a whole lot better. Why aren't we seeing the same results we got in the AM? Okay, so here, this is the PM peak hour, and you can see that there are black lines today, and will be black lines also in 2050. They move around, they're not in the same place. But the reason this is happening is because we have some constraints that we really can't do anything about. Okay, what are those constraints? Well, the biggest one is where we are right now, underneath us. It's the tunnel. The tunnel has a limited capacity. It's basically maxed out today. It's not easy to get much more traffic than that. And so we have to live with that. In the PM peak hour, we just can't get all the cars through that tunnel the way we wish we could. We have a similar problem on the 202 and the 51. Those freeways are maxed out. There's no room to improve them as well. So these constraints make it so that we're not able to carry all the demand. And so we have to live with that, but we can make it the best we can and find other ways of handling that additional traffic. I mentioned there are some challenges. Certainly that access from the 51 to 7th Street is one of them. We have another issue at Jefferson Street and Sky Harbor Circle. And we also need to look outside so that we can make things even better than what we see here. Our schedule is, we're taking input from you. We have about a month to get that input. That will help us to finalize our recommendations, and we'll take them to our committees for approval. Just a reminder, this is the beginning of the process. There are some issues we know we have to address. They need to be addressed more directly when we have the higher level of engineering in the design process. And finally, the improvements that you see here that we're recommending, they will be funded primarily through the sales tax for transportation in Maricopa County. And there's a ballot measure in November for that to be extended. And that will be the primary funding source for these improvements.